Hi, I'm Larry, and I'm making this video to show you how to make very thin crust pizza. I think it's delicious. It's crispy, it's thin, thinnest I've ever seen, and the ingredients that you're going to need is just water and flour and yeast. You're going to roll it out with a rolling pin and a piece of parchment paper. You'll need to put it on a pizza pan, and it'll have to be lightly sprayed. I'm going to show you first of all what you put into the initial ingredients. I've put into this mix 1 cup of warm water, about 105 degrees, room temperature. Don't get it too hot because too hot can kill the yeast. But if it just feels warm to the touch, that's good. 1 cup and about 1/3 of a pack of dry yeast. Don't have to use a whole one. And you put the yeast in the water, stir it just a little bit till it starts to dissolve, and then you start putting in flour. You can see here that the flour mixture is kind of thin, so you keep putting in flour. I just use regular white flour until it's you don't want it really thick, but you want it to be moderately thick, I would say, so that it would hold its shape into a ball. I'll put a little bit more in here. Moderately shaped, but not as stiff as you would bake a loaf of bread with. And what's going to happen is when you let it rise a little bit, the yeast is going to start consuming the flour. You just cover it. I use my fingers. I'm the one that eats this stuff, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to put it in the oven anyway. And then I just cover it with a little bit of flour just to keep it from drying out, and cover it with some saran wrap, put it in the refrigerator, and let it just stay in the refrigerator for a little while. You can go from a little while to several days. This has been in the refrigerator for about 2 days, but you here we show here. It's kind of dry. You can see the texture of. Can you see inside there?
Yeah.
It has risen, and then it has kind of solidified, and it's not terribly hard. You have to kind of dig it out because it's so cold. You don't have to put it in for 3 days. You can put it in for 30 minutes or an hour. You can see it's not formed. It's still sticky. So you got lots of flour here on your parchment, and actually I've got more than enough here. I can tell that I'm going to have to cut this in half, even with that amount that I started with. The recipe was for 1 cup. This is way more than you need when it gets as thin as it's going to be. So I'm going to take half of it out, make it into a ball. And the thing is, you have to get the you have to work. The texture of it is such that consistency is that you have to work in more flour, because you could never roll it out because it's so sticky. You can never roll it out being as thin as it was, but you don't want to start it out really thick. You want to start it out sort of thin and sticky, and then refrigerate it. And the secret to keeping it from sticking while you're rolling it out is lots of flour on the bottom. It's going to be incorporated into the dough, but you don't want it to stick to anything. You don't want to stick to the surface, or you don't want it to stick to the roller. So you got to use a lot of flour, and it's kind of stretchy, but that's the nature of it. It's stretchy, and you can get it pretty thin this way. If it sticks, flour. flour keeps it from sticking. You can get it very, very thin. Thinner than you can imagine. It's like really paper thin. So I'll be sure to get plenty of flour on it, because it will stick. Sticking on the bottom right now, so I'm going to replenish the flour on the bottom of this so that it doesn't stick when I go back to place it on the pan. So I'm going to lift it off here. You see it's sticking right in here because I didn't have enough flour to start with, so I'm just going to dust it with some more flour, and that's going to help. It's got plenty of flour on top. All the time it's getting thinner. I've gotten my my pizza pan ready, so all I have to do, it's sprayed with oil lightly, and I'll be putting this on. This is about the right size. Kind of a mess, but turns out it's very nice. Okay, so I want to get the flour off here because I don't want the flour on the top of the dough. Now it's relatively clear flour on top, because if you put the condiments on top of it, or you put the tomato sauce and stuff on top of it with all the flour, it's just going to get kind of muddy, and you don't want that. A little more stretch on it here. Okay, are you still shooting? Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the pan. Okay, still gotta be careful here. We're going to kind of hold this here and flip it over. It's okay. All a day's work. Okay. You don't want to. You can't stretch it too much beyond this because it's pretty thin already. Gonna have a little extra flour. Extra flour is the secret to success. Lots of flour. Okay, and I want to get rid of this excess flour that I can off the whole operation. Now, it's ready. Put your oven and put the condiments on it. You don't have to spray it or anything. Don't put any more oil on it unless you just want to, if you like oil. But we keep the oil down so that we can keep the calories down, and also it's going to wind up really crispy. I'm going to pop it into a 400-degree oven. I'm going to put on quick bake, which is with the fan on in the oven at 400 degrees, and I'll show you the results. Okay, well, here it is, right out of the oven. You can see here how crispy it is. Maintains its shape. It's like really, really thin crust. So I always take it off the pan but you can see it's completely loose. I don't want to cut anything. I don't want to make a cut mark on the pan, so I just slide it out on the butcher block, and then I'm able to cut it without worrying about making cut marks on the countertop or the pan itself. Again, you can see how thin it is, how thin the crust is, and it's holds up pretty well.